Hi, this is Brenda and Elaine.
Welcome to our After the Show episode, where we go deeper into what we learned from our conversations with guests.
I really enjoyed our conversation with Tsjenna. She has really figured out how to manage her health.
Yeah, it was fun talking to her because she's this young, confident, beautiful Black woman. But one of the things that I was sad about was how long it took for her to figure out what was going on. And I think, one of my big takeaways is if you're going to the emergency room 2-3 times for the same issue, then it's probably time to go see a specialist because her GP was not able to solve it, right?
Yeah, which is concerning. It's something we've heard a few times. I'm happy that she was able to get to the specialist, and something I always thought you had to get a referral from your internist or your primary care doctor to go to see a specialist. And I think that that is less the case now, that you can go directly to a doctor that you feel can address whatever issue you're having. Of course, after you check with your health insurance, right?
Yeah.
Right. But if we can do that, that makes life a little simpler for sure.
Yeah, one of the things I do with my GP is I email them. Which doesn't come with a charge for me. But if I'm saying, oh, is this something maybe I should see an orthopedist for? Because again, we're not doctors, but a lot of times
Yeah, which is something actually recently happened to me, which I know the medical profession is evolving and trying to figure out the best way to deliver help. And I think we've swung from just taking the doctor's word, the doctor prescribing everything, more to a participatory kind of model where we have a little more input into the treatments and the decisions about our health. But I recently had an MRI for some issue that I was having. And, now you see the results without the doctor even interpreting it. So I read the results and I had a few questions that said mostly everything was good. And so I was like, okay. And then later I got the doctor's notes, which said, most things look good, but there might be something that's a little concerning. And if you would like, I will refer you to the specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I would like your input. I don't feel like I'm the one who's
have an opinion
qualified to make that. Do you think I should see this specialist or not?
Right.
And I actually wrote that back to her, and a nurse replied and said, this is what the doctor said, if you want. And I was like,
so they doubled down on if you want.
If you want. And so I said, could you please forward my message to the doctor? Because as my primary care physician, I would like her input or to have a conversation with her about whether this is something I should do or not.
Very good. Did they get back to you?
Not yet, but we got to find the right place. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. I mean, I can't make the decision. I have a doctor because I'm not a trained professional. And yes, I know more about my body than you do. So let's talk to each other and figure this out. But it can't be all you or all me.
Right. And that's right. I can't remember who it was on the podcast, but we had someone on the podcast whose doctor was willing to talk to her about the pros and cons of different approaches. And that's really what I want. It's like, well, the reasons you would go see a specialist are X, Y, and Z. And the reasons you might hold off and wait for a little while and then recheck in a year are P, Q, and R. That's the kind of conversation I want to have.
Right. And
right.
Me too. So I was just a little surprised. And I know Tsjenna eventually got to the specialist that she needed to.
But really, she solved it herself. I mean, even with finally getting the diagnosis, which she diagnosed herself and then got confirmation from the doctor. But even with that, she figured out what she needed to do to avoid these symptoms in the future.
She didn't only figure out what she had, which is interesting,
right.
But she figured out the best way to treat it for herself.
Another thing that our conversation with Tsjenna made me think about, because she was in that really, really bad pain, is that you never know what people are dealing with. So people may not tell you if they're living with a condition that causes chronic pain, and they shouldn't tell you. And so I guess that's just a constant reminder to be kind, because you just don't know what people are dealing with.
Yeah, that's true. We got to have grace for others and for ourselves, because life is hard. It is hard. And Tsjenna was dealing not only with the the PCOS.
She was a mother of a very young child when this was happening, right?
She had a stressful job, I believe. And so I think those factors contributed to the suffering that she was feeling, and probably the inability to process the fact that I need to go to a doctor, and just trying to keep moving through, and then going to the emergency room when it got to a point where it was just unbearable. So I think over time she realized that, I need to deal with the root cause of this. And besides actually diagnosing herself, she realized that she needed to get rid of some of the stress in her life. She realized she needed to change her diet as well.
And I thought it was interesting that she had that band surgery, a weight loss surgery, and talked about how she had been really judgy about people who had that kind of surgery in the past. And I think I may have been that way too. But really, I've reached the point where if something makes sense for you to be your healthiest self, we can't judge.
And that ties back to just giving people grace because we don't know. We also talked about how just the fact that people are overweight presents to many other people in society certain things about them that may or may not be true, and likely are not. I mean, people can look different ways physically and be healthy and active and fit and well. But we always think if we see someone who might look different from what societal standards are of size, that we assign a whole bunch of different qualities to them that just aren't necessarily true.
No, I agree. You can be, looking really skinny and fit and have high cholesterol and high blood pressure and all these things, or you can look bigger than the average or bigger than what society thinks you should look like and have normal numbers for all those things. So, mind your business.
That's a good way to say it, yes. But the other thing, PCOS, is something that I had not heard of until really recently. So having this conversation with Tsjenna was an education for me in terms of what this condition is and how common it is.
It's probably getting diagnosed more because people are more aware of it. But, really bad, painful periods, facial hair, the symptoms that she talked about, I bet there have been and continue to be women out there experiencing that just keep getting up.
Right.
This is what I have to deal with.
In the past, we just felt like we had to just deal with whatever was sent our way. But we're realizing now that, we deserve to have an easy life.
And a lot of things are solvable.
Right.
Like, I remember when I guess I was at the beginning of perimenopause or menopause, and I had horrible, horrible periods. And I ended up having to have an emergency hysterectomy, as you know. But I probably dealt with those for 3-4 years before I really did anything, just because I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, and just
right.
kept
I think
dealing with it.
menopause
It's so silly.
Definitely one of those where we're just told, okay, well, this is just what it is, and deal with it. And I feel like we're progressing there as well, and realizing that there are some things that make our life a little easier. So let's do it.
So there's one thing that, not that we disagree or agree with our guests, but there's one thing I wanted to comment on about Tsjenna's conversation was she was talking about her daughter and how she really wanted to encourage her to do the hard things. So reading was easy for her, I think, and math was challenging. So she really wanted her to do a lot more math. And I agree, because we want our kids to be good at all things. But part of me also wants to just lean into what is easy, not to do the easy thing, but to build on our strengths. So if we're really good at something, to build on that. Sometimes we over-focus on what is a challenge, and I think there's a balance there.
Yeah, and I think especially with younger folks, the thing is you don't really know what is your strength yet. Everything's kind of hard when you first do it. So as long as you take the time and effort to figure out whether this is something that you could be good at, just you need practice at, and it could be a strength, or whether it's something that, you're going to really struggle with. And we all have those things that we're good at and things that we struggle at. And what we realize as we go on is that, we can always partner with people who have those other strengths that we don't have, and get whatever
complementary.
We need. That's right. Get whatever we need done.
Like us.
Right. Well, that was really an educational episode for me, and I thank Tsjenna for sharing her story with all of our listeners.
Me too. If you didn't listen to the episode, go back and check it out. Let us know what you learned from this guest.
If you want to support Body Wealth, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We'd also love it if you give us a 5-star rating and write a review letting us know what you love about the show.
The Body Wealth podcast shares personal stories to inspire you. It does not constitute medical advice. For that, we encourage you to work with a trusted healthcare provider.